A gleaming 1937 Cadillac sat forgotten in a dusty garage, its black paint dulled but still commanding a quiet power. When Marcus, newly divorced and desperate for a fresh start, bought it at an estate sale, he thought he'd simply found a piece of history to restore, a symbol of pride after so much loss. But the moment he slid into the driver's seat, something felt wrong. Old papers tucked beneath the floorboard hinted at a past soaked in secrets, and a faint, metallic scent clung to the leather like a warning. What hidden story had this car carried through decades of silence, and why did its shadows seem to reach for him now? Marcus had spent the past year piecing his life back together after a bruising divorce. At 38, he worked long hours as an IT consultant in Atlanta, filling the silence of his empty apartment with late-night drives and old jazz records. Cars were his escape, machines that never judged, only responded. When he spotted the faded ad for a 1937 Cadillac hidden in the classifieds, something about its elegance pulled him in. The seller's estate was 2 hours away, a small southern town Marcus had never heard of, the kind of place where time and certain attitudes seemed frozen. The trip felt like a chance to start fresh, a reward for surviving heartbreak. Yet, as he crossed county lines, the scenery shifted. The gas stations grew sparse, the stares from passing motorists lingered too long. Marcus brushed it off, telling himself he was overthinking. But when he arrived at the ivy-choked property and saw the Cadillac's black curves gleaming faintly beneath a layer of dust, a chill prickled his skin. Something about the quiet felt heavy, as if the air itself held memories it wasn't ready to share. He told himself it was only the thrill of discovery. He had no idea the car and the town were about to reveal a history darker than anything he'd ever imagined. Marcus signed the bill of sale with a quiet thrill, the Cadillac's long hood catching the last orange streaks of sunset. The executor of the estate, an older white man in a worn blazer, handed over the keys with a stiff nod and disappeared back into the house without another word. Marcus slid behind the wheel, inhaling the scent of aged leather and engine oil. The car rumbled to life with surprising strength, a low growl that vibrated through his chest. For a moment, he felt like he had stepped back in time. The back roads wound through pine thickets and long stretches of farmland. Darkness fell quickly, swallowing the horizon. When he pulled into a small gas station for a late coffee, conversation inside halted. 3 men in hunting jackets stood near the counter, their eyes narrowing as Marcus entered. The cashier, a woman with thin, nervous hands, avoided his gaze and rang up his purchase without a word. Outside, he noticed one of the hunters circling the Cadillac slowly, a faint smirk on his face as if measuring its worth, or Marcus's right to own it. Back on the road, the Cadillac's headlights carved thin tunnels of light through the dark. A pair of truck beams appeared in his rearview mirror, closer than they should be. At first Marcus dismissed it as coincidence. But every turn he took, the truck followed, engine roaring louder, headlights flashing. He pressed the accelerator. The Cadillac responded sluggishly, its age betraying him. His heart pounded as the truck surged forward, then pulled alongside, windows tinted black. A sudden blast of a horn shattered the night, and a can of beer slammed against his driver's door, leaving a foamy trail. Marcus veered onto a side road, tires crunching gravel, praying it wasn't a dead end. The truck hesitated, then disappeared into the dark. He sat gripping the wheel, breath ragged, until the silence became unbearable. When he finally stepped out to steady himself, he noticed something he hadn't before, the faint outline of a burned cross etched into the Cadillac's hood, nearly invisible in daylight, but stark beneath the moon. Shaken, he drove on until he found a dimly lit motel. Inside his room, Marcus pulled the old registration papers from a glove box. The name listed for the original owner made his stomach drop, a man notorious in the region for leading a local chapter of the Ku Klux Klan in the late 1930s. Alongside the papers was a brittle newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. The headline screamed of a black family run off the road and killed on a night drive not far from where Marcus now sat. The Cadillac, once a prize of terror, had carried ghosts of hatred for decades. And now it was his. As Marcus stared at the clipping, a muffled sound came from the parking lot, a slow crunch of footsteps approaching his door. The shadows beneath the frame shifted, and a soft scrape of metal against metal echoed through the silence. Marcus held his breath. Someone or something was out there, and the night was far from over. A violent bang rattled the thin motel door, followed by a low, deliberate knock that seemed to vibrate through Marcus's chest. His pulse hammered in his ears. He reached for his phone, but the signal bar was gone, no service. Another knock, slower this time, scraped across his nerves like a warning. Through the peephole, he caught only a shadowed figure standing just beyond the glow of the parking lot light, face hidden beneath the brim of a hat. The door handle twitched. Marcus backed toward the window, every breath tight with the weight of history. The burned cross on the hood, the news clipping of a family hunted on these very roads. The Cadillac outside felt less like a prize now than a lure, a beacon for hate. The handle rattled harder, then stopped. Silence thickened, broken only by the hum of a neon sign outside. He thought it was over, until the sound of a match striking flared in the darkness. A brief hiss of sulfur illuminated a pale hand, then the acrid scent of gasoline hit his nose. Someone was splashing it near the car. Marcus's chest seized. Memories of his grandfather's warnings about small southern towns flooded back, words he'd once dismissed as old fears. He had seconds to choose, hide and hope, or run and fight. Heart pounding, he lunged for the door, throwing it open to a blast of night air. The figure froze, canister in hand, the Cadillac gleaming behind him like a silent witness. For an instant, time stretched. The hiss of crickets, the stench of fuel, the cold gaze of a man whose intent was carved from generations of hate. Marcus met his eyes, refusing to look away. The man lowered the match. A long breath of silence. Then, without a word, he turned and melted into the darkness, leaving the Cadillac dripping gasoline and Marcus trembling in the doorway, the night alive with ghosts that refused to die. Marcus stayed frozen in the doorway until the sound of retreating footsteps vanished into the humid night. The Cadillac gleamed under the flickering neon, streaked with gasoline like a dark wound. He grabbed a towel from a room and wiped the car clean, hands shaking as if erasing history could be that simple. When the last trace of fuel was gone, he slid behind the wheel and drove until the sun began to rise, each mile a quiet act of defiance. Back in Atlanta, the car sat in his garage, its polished curves reflecting more than just light. Marcus couldn't look at it without feeling the weight of those decades, the clan leader's name on the papers, the whispered stares in the gas station, the shadow at the motel door. It wasn't just a machine. It was a witness to a legacy of hate that still breathed in backroads and dark corners. He considered selling it, even scrapping it, but something inside him refused. Instead, he documented every detail of the night, the clipping, the scars on the hood, the smell of gasoline. He turned the Cadillac into a traveling exhibit, a moving reminder that racism isn't locked in the past. It rides beside us, waiting for silence to keep it alive. The car that once carried terror now carried truth. And every time Marcus opened the driver's door, he asked himself, and anyone willing to listen, a question that lingered long after the engine cooled. If the past can still knock on our doors in the dead of night, what will it take for us to finally answer with justice instead of fear? Share this story. Talk about it. Because silence, like that long dark road, only lets the hate keep driving.